Well, hello there and welcome to the bathroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Used Elfers for April 18th, the day of Vigorous Defense. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of Vigorous Defense. We have what appears to be, what could it be? Oh, it looks to be an elephant and an old-timey curly-toed clog. That's right. Is that a speak to the day of vigorous defense? Hey, who's to say? A lot of times these particular images can be rather enigmatic. No real correlation, ostensibly. Sometimes we can make hide nor hair, but not oftentimes. That said, I just like folks to kind of see what dynamics on the page here in front of me, off camera if you like. That said, what is important around here today, outside of the visual representational images, it's somebody's birthday. So if it's April 18th and it's your birthday today, I just want to say happy birthday. That's what's important around these here parts. That said, well, sometimes these videos find folks late, and if that happens to be the case, I just want to say I hope you had a happy birthday. That said, oftentimes folks like to join us randomly, ostensibly to find out about their loved ones, and if that's why you're here, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that's roll some dice. That's right, this is the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if you've been here before, you know what's going on, or you just want to get to the redirect, hey, just shoot ahead in the chapters. That's why I put them in now. That said, I'll be here rolling dice, because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us, what is it? Boom, a 3 and a 2 for a 5. Now, what synchronicity, you may be wondering if you stuck around? Well, as I hear it told, my friends, the universe, the higher powers that be, if you like, will oftentimes put things in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. But oftentimes we're very narrow of focus or singular of mind as we're getting after the errands or driving to the job and the like. So we might be apt to miss the things the universe is putting in our path. So this is a little bit of an experimentation to help you start picking up on or recognizing such things, all right, as they appear in your world. So how do you do that? Well, we need a little bit of a signpost, if you like, something that's mutually agreed upon between us and the universe, or the higher powers that be. That's right. Your daily numbers, if you like. Now, you don't have to go with what I rolled for you. The intention is there. But if you want to try this out, hey, maybe dive into that old Yahtzee set and take a couple dice out, all right? Because you can use them to ascribe directional values to number sets, say north 1 through 3, east 4 through 6, and so on. Or you can even get down into the nitty gritty, evens and odds for yeses and nos, like should I go here, should I go there, left or right, even, odd, that kind of thing, all right? It's just how far you want to go with it, all right? It's something that you decide between you and the higher powers that be. That said, once you've got all that figured out, hey, pick out a place near and dear to your heart, town square perhaps, or maybe someplace you haven't explored, and then set out. But like I said, you gotta drop those blinders, all right? Get that singular of mind going on, trying to pick these things up, all right? So ostensibly, you're basically looking for your daily numbers, and when you see them, you're chasing them down, all right? But also, hey, once you get those blinders down, you got to stay eagle-eyed, because the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. Take your visual representational image, the elephant and that old-timey clog with the curled toe. Hey, you might start seeing such things cross your path or creep up into your day there. Not necessarily those things, but let's use them as an example, all right? Maybe you see people wearing funny shoes as you're going on through the day, all right? Something out of the typical norm. I would say take that as a sign you're on the right path. Or maybe you see an elephant start popping up on advertisements, billboards, and the like. Or, hey, there's another one. I know that sounds kind of, I don't know, coincidental, but sometimes I think that's the universe trying to tell us we're on the right path, all right? And some people might say the same thing for the old numbers there. Yeah, we're looking for them. Of course we're going to see them. Hey, you know what? Don't poo-poo the notion, all right? You're here to try to have some fun in the mix too, all right? That said, maybe you get on with this journey, you go through 3, 4, 5 different dice rolls, and you're not seeing anything. Hey, don't get dissuaded. The universe has to take time to line things up for you, all right? Maybe you taking the time to roll the dice, make some decisions, set out, take your time, look around. Maybe it is lining things up for you. Maybe no sooner you go to do that 6th dice roll, hey, you know what? Maybe someone you knew from college crosses your path, all right? And maybe they have a woolly mammoth on the t-shirt, all right? And they're wondering why you're shooting craps in the street. Don't you know that's illegal? Hey, you know what? Maybe they're a cop this time. I don't know. That's what they got after in their post-collegia, or whatever the word is, in their afterlife there. All that sorts. The point is, let them know what you're doing, because as I also hear it told, the more people you get involved with this particular process, the more people are focused on the same goals, you're apt to get greater results. So maybe they join you, maybe you get after more things, you see more elephants and clogs pop up. Hey, you're apt to see, taste, touch, smell, intuit even more magic. Because you know what? If you start to see and feel those kinds of things, I think you might agree it's a little magical. So I think you get the idea, despite me getting off track with my words, saying afterlife when, you know what, I post-collegiate, I think is what I was trying to say. In any event, you get the idea. Let's get into the read. That's why you're here. Your month is April. Your day is the 18th. Your sign is 27 to 29 degrees Aries of the Aries III period specifically. And your quality and element is Cardinal fire. All right, here we go. April 18th, the day of Vigorous Defense. Those born on April 18 are Vigorous Defenders of the faith. They are protectors not only of their own interests, but of those of the less fortunate as well. Often the causes they champion and the new ideas they seek to implement are right at the forefront of the times in which they live. Those born on this day are often known as progressive thinkers who fight for their beliefs. Yet they are not radicals. At heart, they are traditionalists who wish to apply their experience and thorough knowledge of what has gone before to the present situation. April 18 people are aware of their appearance and their public image, and how others see them in daily life is very important to them. Consequently, they will rarely, if ever, be caught making fools of themselves in public. Say with some dice there, I feel like. So it might be a test of your will. All right, but in like manner, they are extremely careful to present themselves to their business associates or coworkers in a sober and reasonable light. It is also important to them that their families not only love them, but respect them as well. All April 18 people carry a certain nobility about them. If this aura of nobility and honor is in any way besmirched, they will suffer very deeply and will stop at nothing to put it right. However, during this period of suffering, they may get quite deeply depressed, and it can be quite some time before they ever gain the energy and composure needed to take action. And those born on this day have a strong sense of loyalty, and their defensive instincts extend not only to their friends and family, but to professional colleagues or clients as well. And they should beware of making enemies in this way, and sometimes must allow others to fight their own battles. April 18 people often have emotionally deep and complex bond with one of their parents. And here in parentheticals it says usually a boy with his mother or a girl with her father. And they may indeed depend very heavily on the moral support and approval of this parent. It is on the basis of this very important bond that the child will form his or her ideas of morality as well as how to behave in society while growing up. It is therefore of the greatest importance that problems, here in parentheticals, for it is often a difficult and stormy relationship with this parent, be worked out by adolescents so that those born on this day can get on with their lives and not get stuck psychologically. A crucial area of growth for April 18 people lies in fully unlocking intimate affection and love. If love is bottled up, an embittered personality may result that will always feel a victim of blows of this world. If, on the other hand, love and affection are free-flowing, there is no limit to the positive energy that April 18th people can bestow on those around them. All right, hey, pretty interesting birthday read today, all right? Aries, the whole Aries period writ large, a lot of a typical convention is a kind of a through line theme. despite there being a whole host of various differences. But you can kind of err on the side of guessing what's going to happen to some extent, which kind of bucks a lot of tradition with the other particular zodiac periods as it happens. That said, that's a glaring generality, but I say all that to say this day is definitely breaking with that tradition, all right? So I like seeing it, even though I found it very interesting how much they were sticking to such things with the Aries period. That said, I'd like to provide a little bit of a commentary, get into the weeds with what we read, also make comparisons with the period at large, and like I said, just things I found interesting. So let's get into it here. April 18th, the day of Vigorous Defense. You're said to be vigorous defenders of the faith, and the reading claims you're protectors not of just your own interests, but those of others as well. A trait that, as it happens, arises time and time again through the Aries period. The difference being for you is it sounds much more like a personal mission or a drive, when other Aries individuals who are more self-interested, as it happens, they're usually thrown into such circumstances, otherwise reluctantly, but they're still willing to work with it. So it's one of the earmark nobilities of the individuals in this period. But for you, it's quite different, I would say. Tradition is also a trait that has come up for Aries III individuals, but this air of nobility and honor, it's been a bit reserved and on again, off again to that end. Though this penchant for progressive thinking definitely falls in line with similar ideas forward kinds of dynamics, and that serves as a through line for this particular period. So you have that in common with your other fellow Aries IIIs. But here we go. Despite it seeming to be realized altogether differently for today. So again, you're just a different individual. So I like that coming up here. Concern for your public image is another example of this. As in days previous, a concern for image and or perception creeps up as a concern, but again, in ways that are realized with subtle differences. Two chief differences, however, would be the sense of suffering and depression here that was mentioned in the breakdown that may take some time for you to recover from, and the loyalty and defensive posture that you take with others, potentially leading to enemies or antagonists, all right? For other folks in this period, they have their own hardships for sure, and but again, different. As for antagonists and enemies, on the whole, Aries folks, they'll tend to arouse antagonism because they make a lot of friends. But interestingly, they're not the kind of people who necessarily care so much about that. It's just something that comes to them intrinsically. And so the antagonists that they tend to drive up are ostensibly the folks that are jealous about it. Here for you, it seems more because you're getting involved in people's lives and trying to help them. And a common theme in the book is when folks try to do that, sometimes folks don't like it, all right? But here in this period in particular, it's been coming up that Aries III individuals like to help people. And so in the people that you do help, that do want it, they tend to worship you, all right? Whereas the other folks who don't necessarily want it, that's when you get those enemies coming in, those antagonists. So you follow the through line theme of generating antagonists, but for a whole different reason, all right? That said, what else do we have here? I probably burned down a little bit of what I said. You tend to attract the admiration of others, as I mentioned, if not friendships that they were really asking for. The Aries I people. So again, you're getting in there and intervening with people's lives. That might stir up some issues unless people want it. But complex relationship with parents, however, that they mentioned, and unlocking intimate affection, and that hardship standing out for you, that's an anomaly. Hasn't come up this period as far as I can recollect. And if it has, it was maybe a one-off day. All right. So for you, that's very specific. And if it doesn't apply to you, you're probably lucky. All right. They interviewed a lot of people for each of these days. And so if that's something that they put into the breakdown, it probably applied to a lot of the folks. So just mind that might be dynamic in your life. Maybe you know that, but you hadn't heard it before. And sometimes we need to hear things from an outside source before we cotton to, hey, is that a reason why I'm being affected in this way or that? So hopefully, if that does apply to you, you can start thinking about how to rectify that, all right? Psychology has also been popping up a little bit here and there this Aries III period. So that's a bit of a dynamic shift as well. I don't think that was mentioned in any of the other Aries days, except save maybe one, which was a Neptune day. and that's pretty part and parcel for a Neptune day. But we'll get to that as we move on to your numbers and your planets. That's right. Though you're not a Neptune day, so we may not touch on it. That said, here we go. Those born on the 18th of the month are ruled by the number 9, as 8 plus 1 equals 9, and by the forceful planet Mars. All right. And since Aries, and since the sign of Aries is also ruled by Mars, April 18th people have to beware of their aggressiveness getting the better of them. And since quarreling can make enemies, they should avoid conflict when possible. In addition, the excessive Martian energy of those born on this day means that they may be apt to lead themselves and their companions off on the wrong track. All right. Perhaps they can somehow keep a handle on impulsive urges, yet find healthy outlets for their considerable energies. All right, highly personalized, if not unconventional, numbers of planets entry here today. They totally tossed out the typical copy that they throw in here, and then they'll usually like kind of cut and paste the particulars for the day or the dynamics of the other ruling planet. Here for you, they definitely had to make it unique and new because there aren't a lot of dual Mars days. But that said, they personalized it regardless of that, I would say. That said, probably burning down everything I have to say. Let's dive back into the notes here. The number 9 in the forceful planet Mars, they said, they don't typically say it that way, with its god of warlike energy and adventuresome ambition. And it's perhaps because of this dual influence of the forceful aggression, all right? This is a very interesting entry insofar as this warning of quarreling is concerned. I think that's the first time that's come up in Aries, and there are several number 9 days in this period that have happened so far. One even warned about impulses and aggression, but that was but this enemy-making dynamic reads so much more serious here, I would argue. Number 9 days, more often than not, as concerns the typical copy, they'll discuss the number 9 being this very influential number, and they'll get into like 4 plus 5 equals 9, and then I don't know, I have to go read it for you, but all that to say, you're influential individuals. They didn't put that in here today, all right? Though they did discuss how you're powerful and you have an earmark ability to influence others insofar as you might lead them off in the wrong track, all right? So I would say it was there. It was just more of an allusion to as much. And ALL, illusion, not ILL. And so you might want to be sure that you're not leading folks off in the wrong direction. But that powerful influence isn't as drilled down upon is what I'm trying to say here. And that's what makes the copy so different. But I would say that's despite the fact they said your energy is considerable, all right? So like I said, personalized to be sure. Although a lot of it's written in between the lines and you got to search for it and ostensibly read the rest of the book to make comparisons. So hopefully I did that for you in no small part. Gave you more information to kind of consider about as much. Hey, does this apply? Does this not apply? A lot of folks don't believe in the astrology. Hey, I'm kind of on the fence about it too, but it's interesting, all right? So that said, that's been your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. Oh, that's right. We're getting into more new age ideologies here. One of the more eclectic, if you like, but hey, it's here in the book. Sometimes these things serve as a metaphor for things that are happening on the day. Sometimes they line up so much, they seem almost to inform the birthday breakdown. And by a lion's share, the Aries period here, the cards have been doing that. So we'll just have to see if that's the case. But I make mention of, just reading it because some folks in the comments will say it's blasphemous to even mention it. Hey, you know what? We're just going to take what it has to say and then we can leave it here in the book. We don't got to go home and start dealing out the cards, all right? So let's find out. Let's get into it here. The 18th card, the major arcana, is the moon, all right, which primarily represents the world of dreams, emotions, and the unconscious. The moon is traditionally a symbol of feminine forces as well as of emotions. Positive attributes include sensitivity, empathy, and emotional understanding. Negative qualities include emotional malleability, passivity, and a lack of ego. The highly imaginative influences of the moon can create illusions and set all kinds of traps, ambushes, and deceptions for those born on April 18th. All right. Very interesting entry here today for the tarot, all right? let's just get into it. All right, I don't want to talk too much about it. I might burn it all down. The moon, a once a month card representing dreams, emotions, and the subconscious. All right, here's why I say this is interesting. I don't think it's a very applicable card for you. All right, at least for the day, by my estimations, which is an anomaly, as it's not as it's on the which is an anomaly as on the nose as so many of these last few days have been, or the period really. Like I said, the cards seem to inform the breakdown. Not for you, I would say. Okay, it would seem as though the card more or less is referencing the moon as a planet versus as a tarot card. And I could see how the moon's influence, if you take it as a planet, with its dreamy illusion respects, may very well cause a conflict with your higher grounded Martian energy. And then, as they said, set traps for you. You know, they buttoned this tarot card for you and personalized it a little bit. That doesn't often happen, and when it does, that's kind of how they realize it, with just a little bit of a button. So I like that they did that for you, especially since it doesn't really seem to apply. But that said, it didn't really say very much. Here, what else did I have to write? Let's see here. Oh, so highly grounded Martian energy sets traps for you. Ironically, Venus in its opposite feminine energy usually balances Mars for a very harmonic kind of day. But they're saying these qualities with the moon will set traps for you. So I found it interesting that their reasoning for that is actually to your detriment in this respect. Whereas Venus kind of does the same thing with its particular energies, but it's harmonious. So that's a little bit of an anomaly. And doesn't really necessarily seem to line up there either. And what else I have here? So that's also interesting that, well, you know, the moon's more of a dreamy head in the clouds kind of energy also. So maybe that's why it's a conflict. With Venus is a little more grounded, I would say, despite there's feminine qualities to it. On a Neptune day, same argument, very head in the clouds kind of stuff. So there's a lot of conflict when an earthy energy comes in there. That said, what's interesting also when they give advice is if somebody's very grounded, they kind of give the advice that leans the opposite way. You need to kind of think about the spiritual, the higher minded type stuff, the head in the clouds kind of thing. As for Neptune individuals, they'll give them, you need to be a little more earthy, keep one foot on the ground. So it's interesting that this opposite, this moon energy, is something they're saying to avoid to a certain extent. All right. So again, another anomaly, seeming contradiction, if you like. That said, like I said, this card doesn't seem to really line up, but I do find it valuable in that it causes you to think about such things, the paradoxes, if you like. So pretty interesting in that respect. But again, another anomaly because it doesn't line up the way these other ones have been in the past period. So interesting in that respect too. That said, that's been your tarot card. Let's move on to your health. Here we go. Mental balance should be of the utmost concern for April 18 people. And since their strengths lie in the areas of forcefulness, will, and imagination, rather than reason, their willingness to submit to a rigorous mental training of some kind is essential. In order to keep in good faith, those born in this day would do well to order and structure their lives so that energy can be put to use constructively, rather than dissipating itself in idle pursuits and wasted energies. In the same way that regular work habits and exercise patterns can structure the will and the imagination of April 18 people, so can regular meals of well-balanced nature produce beneficial effects. In the wilder energies of April 18th people, if rather they are not channeled, they can lead to fights and accidents, and at particular risk are the head and the face. Moderate exercise on a fixed schedule will do wonders to keep those bored on this day relaxed. All right, this is a very dynamic health entry. And what's interesting is, again, we're kind of breaking a little bit of tradition here with the Aries period. I say that because what I like to call the Aries anomaly, the typical convention for a health entry is to talk about the kind of foods they should eat, down to like wheats and grains or vegetables and the like, and also what kind of exercise they should partake in. But on the whole, Aries hasn't been getting any of that. Now, is that valuable or not? I don't know, but I'm just saying it breaks with the convention. Here, they're kind of coming back to it the way the rest of the read kind of did. You got those recommendations. So once again, let's get back into it here. Your health entry. They said mental balance is said to be a chief concern. And as I mentioned, that came up here in the past few days. So they said mental training is essential, and that's a first for the period. I also didn't pick up on this progressive thinking aptitude being so focused that it was an ostensible fixture of your being, because they kind of breezed over it. All right, they did mention it, but it just wasn't really a sticking point. Here they're talking about it, saying you're very imaginative and the like, and that's interesting because I didn't really pick up on that in the breakdown. But what else do I have here? Also didn't pick up on that. The latter sections, they've really been leaning into a lot more details. So I like that they're doing that. That said, this is unusual for Aries, all right? Most of the important things they have to say, they're in the breakdown, all right? And also, I think I mentioned that the health will typically get into the nitty gritty about your exercise regimen, your foods. They usually focus on the physical also, and not necessarily the psychological. So when it does come up, again, I would say take note. And it was kind of here for you, despite the fact it didn't go too heavy into it. On that last Neptune day, I think they brought up the fact they hear voices and they follow them. And it kind of had an air of schizophrenia to it, though I don't think it mentioned as much. And that being said, I have seen that pop up in the book. So when it's pertinent, they'll make mention of it. But this, like I said, highly unusual Aries day insofar as the health entry usually focuses on what it focuses on. But here, they gave it to you the way they typically do. All right. What else do we have here? They said to channel your wild energies. All right. Because you might get into fisticuffs with folks. All right. That hasn't been coming up. Not even on the other number 9 days where the dual Mars was in the mix. So maybe take note of that. And they mentioned the head and the face, I would assume, because the Aries body areas are the head and the spine and the like, all right? And something else they haven't been mentioning as of late is things to watch out for because of those body areas. So the likes of tooth decay, headaches, and also to mind maybe taking in some chiropractic and massage and the like. You know, some of these other days a little bit aggressive. They mentioned yoga to relax. And so maybe that's in the bargain for you as well if you've got one of those natures that needs to be calmed down. It kind of sounds like it is, or it does rather, because it's so proximate to the day that came up. So mind you, take care of your head and your neck and the like. What else they say? They said, what do we got here? Moderate exercise. Very interesting. That holds true with the rest of Aries. Typically a Mars focused day, they'll get recommendations for vigorous or strenuous exercise, ostensibly to excise their ambitious aggression. Sometimes even combative sports come up as a recommendation. But for Aries on the whole, moderate exercise, because Aries are doers, all right? They get their exercise in just being who they are and chasing after the things that they chase after. And in the few cases where they mention why to watch that stuff, it's because they get themselves hurt when they go after exercise, because they got that God of War energy. They go too hard, too long, too fast, who's to say? But that's why they say not to do it. So once again, you get moderation there in that respect. That said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Don't be too defensive or eager to sort things out. Allow yourself to be more trusting and relaxed. Be as accepting of others as possible. And if they don't bother you, just let them be. All right, and keep a lid on your anger. All right. I don't like this one insofar as it kind of assumes you're a hothead. Maybe that's the case, but I don't know. I didn't really pick up on that too much from the breakdown and the rest. That said, I didn't have any space in the notebook for the advice, so I'm going to be looking at the book here, and I might get a little off track. Now, I was getting off track with the notes, so it might happen a lot here. Let's get into it here. They said, don't be too defensive or eager to sort things out. All right, and I wrote, balance, it sounds like, is the watchword concern for you. And despite the fact they didn't mention it. You know what? It's in the book very often. Balance and self-awareness. Self-awareness being, hey, we need to start recognizing when we might be going off the trail or into those things that get us into trouble, all right? And if we can pick up on those things, we can avoid them before they even get into the troublesome territory, if you like. But for Aries, once again, like I said, they haven't been mentioned in a lot of the watchword themes that are in the rest of the book. So for you, I would say balance, all right? Let's see here. Again, self-awareness, also an overreaching concern in the book to learn how to recognize and avoid your triggers. I mentioned all that. That said, they haven't been mentioning, okay, I burned it all down. Allow yourself to be more trusting and calm, they said. Let's see here. Quell that Martian energy, it sounds like. Know how and when to do so, and how to best lean into it when it is needed, and how to utilize it best, I would say. They said be accepting of others and leave them be. If they don't bother you, don't bother them, right? I didn't get the idea that you weren't accepting of others. So that's pretty interesting. They wrote that here. Maybe insofar as you jump to their defense out of loyalty without allowing them the opportunity to defend themselves, perhaps. I mean, we know that came up. But I'd say you can also leave people who bother you to be by themselves also, all right? Avoid possible altercations. You don't always have to rise to your own defense, all right? Sometimes smarter to walk away. Gotta pick your battles. Is it important to get this person I don't know and put them to task and put them in the right place? Maybe not, you know, right? Let's see, but it also speaks to the last thing they said, keeping a lid on your anger, all right? Work that muscle. It takes, you know, sometimes we got knee-jerk reactions. I'm guilty of it myself. Right after I do it, I go, oh, why did I do that? Why didn't I pick up on the telltale indicator that was going to set me off? I think it's good to be mindful of those things. But yeah, like I said, save it for the necessary instances when it's required, if even then, all right? That said, that's been your advice. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's see where you got the girth and where you otherwise maybe a little more atrophied in the bargain. All right, your strengths, it says you're honorable, you're vigorous, and you're fair. That's, you know what? I don't know what I've seen fair pop up before in the book. Interesting. But your weaknesses, oh, what could your weaknesses be? Let's see if we figured these ones out from the breakdown. Here we go. Your weaknesses. Unrealistic, okay, pugnacious, and emotionally unstable, apparently. Oh, it's just that, another word for that, anger, maybe. I don't know. And pugnacious, I had to look that one up. So we'll get into it here because I often like to compare and contrast the strengths and weaknesses. To say, I think we can use our strengths to overcome our weaknesses if they're an issue. But I also like to make the argument that our weaknesses can be strengths in and to themselves. Sometimes I falter and flounder. Let's see if I can make a case. All right. It says you're honorable, vigorous, and fair. How can those help you overcome your own weaknesses? You know what? I say sometimes we got to hold the mirror up in how we act in this world, act with ourselves. So if you're honorable with the rest of the world, hey, you're probably going to be honorable with yourself if you want to approach improving upon your weaknesses. You're going to hold yourself to task in the right ways, all right? Vigorous, hey, you're going to get after it, all right? You're going to throw all of that energy, and it sounds like you got a lot of it with them dual Martian energies going to get after improving upon your weaknesses. Also fair. Hey, you know what? You're not going to be too vigorous with yourself, all right? You're going to be like, you know what? I think you're putting in the effort. Good job, all right? You know what? We don't have to go too vigorous with this other aspect. We're already doing the work over here. I would contend, all right? That said, how can your weaknesses be strengths, all right? This said you're unrealistic. Hey, you know what? Sometimes unrealistic people come up with the best ideas. You need that sometimes, not just in everyday life, but in, you know, at the job too, I would say. That's valuable, all right? But sometimes unrealistic, man, you're holding people to standards that they just can't achieve. And then we're getting into leadership principles, like you have to know the people that are underneath you and what they can and can't do, all right? That comes up a lot in the book, not specifically with a leadership type bent, but hey, we need to expect that maybe you've got more energy than these other folks do. That specifically comes up, and so you have to temper your expectations. So that's probably why they mentioned it as a weakness, I would say. But again, hey, we just need to know how to apply it and where, I would say. Pugnacious, though, what could that mean? Like I said, I had to look it up, and they said combative of nature, all right? So engages in confrontations. Okay, hey, I know why they're saying that's a negative, because, hey, people don't like combative individuals. But how can that be a strength? Here's the thing, I just said it. People don't like combative individuals. They avoid confrontation like the plague. But in certain circumstances, you have to have the gumption to be combative or to look at the confrontation, because sometimes confrontation is required to get things done. Not necessarily in a fisticuffs manner, though you could argue that, but I'm contending with, say, at the job, all right? You see an issue, hey, you're going to report it. You're a fair individual, right? You got the honor, right? Hey, this is an issue, it needs to be dealt with. Other people would poo-poo it, dance around it, walk on the eggshells, and not have the gumption to mention it. So I think that is a strength in and of itself. But once again, balance. You got to understand when to use it, all right? When not to. You start being unfair, what do they call it? Unrealistic, picking everything apart, causing combative issues with the tiniest little thing. Hey, that's not going to look good on you, all right? I think you get it. But emotionally unstable, how could that be a strength? You know what? I put down here, I had to write it down because I had to think about it. I was like, I'm not going to be able to fly by the seat of my pants with this one. Or pugnacious, all right? Highly sensitive, all right? And that sounds kind of feminine if you like, but hey, you know what? You've got an understanding. You've got to have a little bit of empathy in the world. And I would say if you're emotionally unstable, you've got it because you've experienced that stuff, all right? Whereas other people haven't. Or if they have, you know where they're coming from. You can identify with it. Treat them accordingly, all right? I also put authenticity here. Are you going to have a certain amount of authenticity if you're a little bit emotionally unstable? People are like, this is, yeah, we see the real you with this guy or this gal because they don't hold back, all right? But you probably should to some extent, all right? Like I said, use your strengths or your weaknesses when you can, when you should. Also, adaptability, all right? That's another one in there. Your experience because you're used to these things, all right? If you know when the knee-jerk's going to happen, you've dealt with it so many times in the past, hey, you know how to adapt to it, especially if you've overcome it, all right? So I would say that insofar as emotionally unstable is a strength, it comes with experience, all right? Especially if you did the work to overcome or improve upon it. So I don't know. I don't think I did too bad a job, but hopefully you get the idea, all right? Even if you think I floundered completely. So that said, use your strengths to overcome your weaknesses, but don't throw your weaknesses in the trash altogether because they might just benefit you, all right? So that said, that's been your strengths and weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, what I like to do is use it as an opportunity to focus on chasing down our passions or a purpose, because I meet a lot of individuals who are just punching the alarm clock to roll out of bed and get to work to punch the time clock, all right? And then at the end of the week, they turn in to rally and reconcile themselves to do it again, all right? What's the function there outside of providing the money and the means to live an otherwise comfortable life, all right? I think there has to be something more. I would at least wish it for you if that's the case. And you know what? Sometimes it takes time, work, and dedication to even figure out what a purpose or a passion might be. So hopefully, if you don't have that in your life, hey, we can see what these other individuals in the book did to get in the book, and maybe just that seed of thinking about it in that respect. Like, hey, whoa, what could my passion be? We'll get you working that way, all right? Get the gears turning if you like. That said, if you've already got a passion or purpose and life's otherwise fulfilling for you in that respect, then the hat I'm not wearing's off to you. Let's just see who shares your company. All right, let's get into it here. Those born on this day. We have Tadusk, I'm saying that wrong, Tadeusz, so I'll say Tadusk, Mazowiecki, a Polish prime minister, lawyer, journalist, and solidarity leader. And let's see if we can look at this from the prism of vigorous defense. Are these vigorous defenders? We also have Clarence Darrow, there we go, a lawyer, and it says the Scopes trial defense attorney. We also have Leopold Stokowski, a conductor, Queen Frederica, a Greek monarch. We also have Mildred Bailey, a U.S. Army Brigadier General, and it says Women's Army Corps head. George Hitchens, U.S. Nobel Prize winning biochemist, and it also says chemotherapy here. Abdido Desio, Italian geologist, explorer, first to climb K2 and the world's second highest peak. James Woods, film actor. Eric Roberts, film actor. Miklos Rosa, R-O-Z-S-A, Hungarian-born film composer. Robert Hooks, stage, TV actor, also film. And it says the Negro Ensemble co-founder. Must be the name of the ensemble he was a part of. All right, see here. Huntington Hatford, a financier, also an art patron, and it says A&P heir. We also have Joseph Goldstein, a U.S. Nobel Prize winning molecular geneticist. I was going to say geologist, some geneticist. Giuseppe Pella, an Italian economist. Ludwig Miedner, a German expressionist, realist painter. Max Weber, an expressionist Cubist painter. We also have Little Brother Montgomery, a blues pianist and a singer. We also have Haley Mills, the film actress. Henry Hyde, the U.S. Congressman of Illinois. And finally, Malcolm Marshall, a Barbadian cricket fast bowler. All right, very interesting. And you know what? As of late, I've just been mucking up the names because they ain't necessarily easy to wrap my mouth around. So that being said, let's do the butchering on my side of things and make up for it. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't often work for me with the names there. That said, were they vigorous defenders? Hey, at least it worked out with that Clarence Darrow one. That was nicely timed. That said, hey, did that serve as an inspiration for you? Who's to say? All right, but hey, hopefully I just got the gears turning for you. All right. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, except to say your season is spring, your sign once again is Aries, of the Aries III period specifically, and your quality and element is Cardinal fire. All right. And I don't know that we made hide nor hair of the elephant and the curl-toed claw, but no matter. All right. This has been April 18th, the day of Vigorous Defense, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Used Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy. Hey, if you're up to hold some kind of party or host an evening where folks come over to the house or whatever, hey, break this out. You're apt to break the ice in a literal or figurative fashion, especially considering this thing's girth, all right? Get the conversation started for better or for worse. Read people their birthdays, see if it lines up, if you know them very well, see what they have to say. Hey, you're apt to get the party started off right. Or maybe wrong, who's to say? You're the combative nature, conflicts and the like. You never know, all right? That said, book having been relayed, that's not what's important here. What's important, like I said, if it's your birthday, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, you heard it here. Happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us to celebrate, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, learned something, and you join us for your birthday reading, all right? Now, before I go, like I said at the top, get out there in the world and let the universe show you it's with you on your side, all right? On the path, if you like. 3 and a 2 for 5, or whatever you roll for yourself, all right? I have a affiliate link for the book down in the description, right above a personal message I like to leave for the birthday boys and girls there. So go check those out if you're interested. But like I said, this has been the reading here for today. So make sure you mind your combative nature there. You know, make sure you analyze whether you need to have that knee-jerk reaction or what caused it. All right. And I think you'll be great, all right? And then do the work to get ahead of any kind of psychological stuff that might be happening from the parents thing, if that applies, all right? Doesn't come up very often, all right? That said, you know the deal, all right? So once again, happy birthday and take care of yourselves.